כל השבוע אני...
Okay, Kadosh, Masechet Betzah Daf Lamedaled Amud Aleph. Okay, 3481. Masechet Betzah. Okay, man. We said over here like this. We just said that Amar Rabbi Barachad Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Hacha. Here we're talking about Re'afim Chadashim Askirim. We're talking about, you remember the pieces of pottery, earthenware, which was new, and you're putting it inside of the oven, and right, in order to roast fish on top of it. So it says here, Shetzarich levodkan. You have to check them. So since you have to check if it can withstand such a high degree of heat or not, so you're not allowed to do it on Yom Tov, because if it does break, so you can't use it anymore. So therefore, you just broke it for no reason. And some people say because you have to harden them. So when you harden it through the fire, so therefore it's like you're making a keli. So there are two reasons why you're not allowed to come and use this to do this libun on these re'afim. The re'afim were like the tiles that you use on your roof. Okay. Now we're starting right here. Tanan Hatam. This is where we're starting for today. Tanan Hatam, we learned over there in a Mishnah, dirasah or shetirafa. If a person comes and he was daras, right? Mamash, we're at the top. Yeah, the second line. Yeah, second line. Dirasa or shetirafa. We're talking about if somebody was daras ala of peraglav or uzarak et ha'of v'chavat oto b'kotel. Mamash, he took this off, he threw it against the wall, or he stepped on it with his foot. Or sheditzatzta be'ema or chavata b'be'ema. So now the off is moving, but you know that he can't even stand up. He's mefarkeset. He's basically dying. Yeah? I don't know how you say it literally in English. Says, and he was still alive for 24 hours. Ushchata, and now he did the shechita, kishira. So basically, the general rule is that he has to be alive for 24 hours, mefarkeset. Only if he's alive 24 hours and he's moving around, then if they do shechita, it's going to be kosher. But if not, I'm going to suspect that the animal is already dead. You understand? That means even though it's moving around, but there's nothing that's going to be there, right?
After 24 hours, he did the shechita.
After 24 hours, he did the shechita, it's going to be kosher. But before the 24 hours doing shechita, it's not going to be kosher. Okay?
But he's already dead after 24 hours.
No, what does that mean? No, after 24 hours, you're allowed to do shechita. If it died within...
He's still moving.
Yeah, he's still moving. Yeah, 100%. Okay? So Amar Rabbi Elazar bar Yanai mishum Rabbi Elazar ben Antignos. Says Rabbi Elazar bar Yanai in the name of Rabbi Elazar ben Antignos. Tzricha bedika. Even after the shechita, you have to do bedika. Why? Maybe it's going to be a terefa. And if it's a terefa, it's going to be a problem. So now says the Gemara one more time. Bamine Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbi Zera. So ask Rabbi Yirmiyah from Rabbi Zera. Ma'ul shochta b'yom tov. You're allowed to do shechita on this animal on Yom Tov. Says the Gemara, mimach sekinan. Right? Are we going to say reuta b'yom tov? Are you going to say that there's an isur of doing a melacha on Yom Tov or not? So says the Gemara, Malei Tanina, we already learned it. Right? What do we learn? We learned you're not allowed to put the re'afim. Remember, these are the tiles. They're putting them inside of the oven in order to roast on them. But we ask, my kavi, what melacha is there already? We're dealing with new tiles. So therefore, since it's new tiles, you have to check if it will withstand the heat. So because of the chumrah of the melacha doing on Yom Tov and Libun, because maybe they're not going to withstand the heat, then it's going to break, and you just were over on Isur, because you didn't need it. So therefore, because of that, you're not allowed to do the shechita on the off. Just in case, you have to check it, and it wasn't going to be good. So if you checked the shechita and it wasn't going to be good because it's a trefa, so you're not allowed to do the shechita for no reason, because then you did the shechita for no reason on Yom Tov. That means the exact same halacha.
What do you check?
One more time. One more time. He comes and he says, if you remember, there were two reasons for the rafin. One reason was you have to check if it's going to withstand the heat or it's going to pop. The other reason was that you're going to come and you're going to strengthen it through the fire. When you strengthen it through the fire, now you made it into a keli. If I learned that pshat into the, how do you say it? If I'm going to learn that pshat into the Gemara, meaning that's the reason in Mishnah, and not because of Setzarech Levodkan, so according to that, I can't bring a proof from Rafim anymore. That means the reason, why can I do Rafim? Because I have to strengthen it. I have to make it, I harden it. And I'm not allowed to do that in Yom Tov. But Lebodkan, I never had that Gemara, meaning that wasn't part of the Mishnah. So therefore, there are two different reasons why I'm not allowed to do Rafim. One reason was one reason was the other one. He's saying, I didn't learn that one. That's why I never taught it. Okay? Next, right.
Interesting. In the Daf with them in the sauna.
Says the Gemara. We learned in the Beitzah. אחד מביא את האור, ואחד מביא את העצים, ואחד שופט את הקדרה, ואחד מביא את המים, ואחד נותן בתוכת הפלין, ואחד מגיס. כולן חייבים חטאת. So now here the Beitzah says like this: if somebody's going to bring the fire, somebody's going to bring the wood, somebody's going to place the pot on top of it, somebody's going to put the water in the pot, somebody's going to put the tavlin in the pot, and somebody's going to start stirring the pot. Kulan, all these cases are going to be chayavim. All of them are going to be chayavim chatat. Why? Because each person did a malacha, which is a surah min Torah. Okay, so ask the Gemara. 1 second. Why are they all going to be chayavim? Tanya, we learned acharon chayav. I thought that only last one is chayav because he was the one that did the cooking. He was the one that was magis. Everybody else is patur. They didn't do anything. Says the Gemara, it's not a question. The IT urmi kara. It all depends when they brought the fire. If they brought the fire at the beginning, so each one is going to be chayav. The first one, he brought the fire. The second one, he put the pot. The second one, put the water. He's already cooking the water. The next one came and he put the wood. He was chayav in the wood. The next one came, he put the spices. He put the spices. Each one is going to be chayav. But the other case was, if they only brought the fire at the end. Meaning, if I'm going to bring wood and I put it down, was I chayav? I didn't do anything. If I'm going to put a pot, it's an empty pot, but there's no fire. There's nothing there. If I put water, but it's water in a pot on wood, there's nothing there. Only the last person comes and he put the fire. So now that's why the acharon is chayav and everybody else is going to be patur, right? Patur v'asur. So says I understand why everyone is going to be chayavim ka'avdi ma'aseh because each one did a melacha doraita. But shofetet kedera, my kavid. But if I just put the pot on top of the fire, what did I do? I put the pot on the fire, but it was an empty pot. There's nothing there. What am I doing? Answers the Gemara ben Shimon Lakish. We're talking about a new pot. And therefore, so because I'm solding, there's a word in English. I probably were trying to look for it yesterday also as well. Forgot the word. Basically, there's a word in English that basically when I'm going to come and I'm going to take a metal utensil, the last product, the end product is you put it in a fire, and that fire comes and it finishes the jobs. It strengthens the utensil. It makes it new. It makes it harder. So that hardening of the utensil is kedera chadasha askina. So because of that, that person is going to be chayav. That means even though there's no food, he's not chayav mishum bashel because of cooking food. He's chayav because of mitaken the kli. He's actually coming and soldering the utensil. Okay? Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in the Beitzah. Tanu v'kirayim chadashim. When you have a new oven or new stove, so that's like it's not muktzeh. Why? Because you could use it for something permitted. You could put things on top of it. It was never used. But you're not allowed to start spreading on it oil or coming and start spreading on it on matzlit like a cloth in order to make it more halak, to make it smooth in it. You can't put cold things on it in order to harden it. But if you're doing all these things in order to cook, you're allowed to come and you're allowed to do this because this is part of the cook. Okay? So says the Gemara, right? He says, right? Obviously, we're talking about Yom Tov that you're allowed to cook because on Shabbat, obviously not. Yeah. So now says the Gemara, we learned in the Beitzah, molgin et harosh v'et haraglayim umeavimim otam ba'ur. So you're allowed to do shtifa b'mayim rotchim. That's called molgin, meliga. Meliga means you're putting in a boiling hot water the head and the feet, right, of the animal, right? Umeavimim otam ba'ur, and you're allowed to put them in a fire. Aval en toflin otam, but you're not allowed to put the head and the legs in order to take away the hairs. You're not allowed to pluck out the hairs. The charsit, with this type of charsit, which is a type of like a lime, which comes and removes hair. So it's like a hair removal. It comes and removes the hair of the animal, of the animal. Velo ba'adama, right? And not in the adama. Okay? Velo besid, right? And not on the seed, which is lime. Ve'en gozin otam bemisparayim. And you're not going to put them in misparayim. You're not allowed to come and you're not allowed to cut the hairs with the misparayim, with scissors. Thank you. Ve'en gozin et hayerek b'tisporet shelo. And you're not allowed to come and cut out, whether we're talking about the yerek, the vegetables, with this tisporet, okay? Aval metaknin et hakundas v'takaviyot. But you're allowed to fix, whether you're talking about different vegetables and things like that, umasikin v'ofim bepurni. And you're allowed to put in a big oven, right? Even though there's a big tircha and coming and putting a big oven, but if you have to do it for a lot of people, right? And it's not enough a small oven, you're allowed to use a big oven, right? On this, this is all on Yom Tov, correct? Yes, on Yom Tov. Okay? You're allowed to heat up water in an antiche, which is basically like, it used to be like a utensil which used to keep, right nowadays we have a thermos, but it's something very similar to a thermos which used to keep the heat in for a long time. But you're not allowed to use to start baking in a new oven, shema tifachet. Maybe it's not going to be strong enough and then it's going to crack, and then again you're going to be over that you use something for no reason. Okay? Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in the Beitzah. You're not allowed to come and use this how do you call the willows? Willows, I forgot there's a word for it. Bellows, the bellows. You're not allowed to come and use a bellow, which is basically the fan for the oven. Right? But you could use it with a shoferet. Yeah, exactly. But you're not allowed to fix any scores. You're also not allowed to come and to sharpen it. You're not allowed to come and to be mekalef. You're not allowed to peel the outside of the reeds in order to use them in order to come and to start roasting dag maluach on it. But you are allowed to crack a walnut inside of a cloth. Okay, and you're not going to start suspecting that it's going to tear open this, how do you call it, this matlit, this cloth. Okay? This is there's a Mishnah, the Mishnah on bottom of Lamed Amud says the Mishnah, Rabbi Eliezer, says Rabbi Eliezer also, right? So he said over here, a person could be standing by the muktzeh. Remember, the muktzeh was the backyard. Chatzer is the front yard, muktzeh was the backyard. So it says a person could stand by the muktzeh, for example, where he has there dried figs or grapes, or then you put them to dry up to make like raisins, and they already started becoming fitting for a few people in order to eat them, right? But some people don't eat it until it's 100% dry, okay? So he says over here, right? Be'erev Shabbat Bashvit, Lamedala Damubet, right? On Erev Shabbat during the year of Shemitah, Ve'omer, and he could say, tomorrow I want to eat from this place. And then it's going to be permitted to eat from these perot on Shabbat because he was already revealing his mind that that's what he wants to do. Chachamim say, Ad shirshom v'yomar mikan ve'ad kan. It's not just enough that he says from here. He has to be roshem. He has to say from here till here, right? He has to mamash. He has to like make a siman, right? From which place to which place. Okay. Very good. Says the Gemara. Okay. Tanan Hatam. We learned over there in the Mishnah. Tinokot shetamnu, right? When you have children, right? That they went and they put in a gina or a sadeh, te'eni merev Shabbat, figs from merev Shabbat, v'shachu v'lo yisru. Now they forgot that they didn't separate ma'asrot. Lemotzei Shabbat lo yuchlu. So they're not allowed to eat it on Motzei Shabbat. Ela imken yisru, until they come and they actually did take off the ma'asrot. Right? Why? Because since all the eating on Shabbat was an achila chashuva, so it's considered an achila keva. So then you're not allowed to eat it even in achilat arai until they do the ma'aser. So again, one more time. So the Mishnah said the Gemara, if you have children that they forgot to take off the ma'asrot, and then they came and they wanted so on Motzei Shabbat, since on Shabbat it's an achila chashuva, they cannot even eat achilat arai without taking off ma'aser. Utzna nami, we also learned it in the Mishnah. Hamavir teneim bechatzero likatzot banav uvnei beto ochlim mehen, right? Arai uvturim. However, though, what happens right now if a person came and they put tenim, dried figs, right, in the chatzer in order to dry them up? So his children, they could come and they're allowed to eat from them, achilat arai, and they're pturim from maaser. Why? Because even though you put them into the chatzer, since it didn't finish off the melacha of drying it up, which means that the bringing it into the chatzer is not something which is kavua. So therefore, since it's not tavka kavua, arai, they're allowed to eat it without taking off maaser. If they do something which is kavua, so then they're not allowed to eat from it even arai. But if it wasn't something kavua, they're allowed to eat from it arai. So here too, since it wasn't kavua, even though they're coming and they're putting it to dry up, but it's not considered something which is kavua, they're allowed to eat it without taking off maaser. So asks Rava from Rav Nachman, Shabbat, ma'u shetikba muktzeh lemaaser. Says what? The Shabbat kovat, the perot become muktzeh to do maaser b'dvar shelo nimer melachto, even if something which is not finished. Which means I would only say if it's 100% finished, and now it's Shabbat and achila chashuva, so then it's considered kavua. But here it's not something kavua. It's nothing here. Mi amrina, do we say kim dechtiv, since it's written v'karata la Shabbat oneg, you're going to call the Shabbat oneg, which is like an achilat keva. So it's kava lemaaser. Even though if it didn't finish the work on Shabbat, meaning it's not ready yet. Or Dimar maybe would say no. Only if it's something which is already finished the melacha. If it's not finished the melacha, lo kava, it's not going to be kovea for Shabbat to do that. It's going to be an achilat keva, right? Even if they did designate it to whatever it is. So Amalei, so comes Rav Nachman and he tells Rava, Shabbat kovat. Shabbat is going to be kovea for the maaser in order to be miachedotam for Shabbat. Whether it's going to be nigma melacha, not nigma melacha, it's all going to be the exact same halacha. Okay, that it's going to be, you're not allowed to eat it from it arai because Shabbat is making it keva. So even if it was fixed the melacha or not, meaning you finish the melacha or not, Shabbat is kovea. That's it. Right? That's the importance of the Shabbat. So Amalei, ve'ima Shabbat dumi de chatzer. 1 second. Why isn't the Shabbat considered like the chatzer? Right? Ma chatzer, just like the chatzer is not kavua, only by something which was fixed, meaning it finished the melacha. So to Shabbat is not going to be the same unless it's nigmar melachto. So Amalei, he says, limud aruch b'yadenu. We have a Kabbalah in our hands. Shabbat kovaat. Shabbat is always going to be kovea. Ben, it doesn't matter whether it's going to be b'davar shenigmar melachto or ben b'davar shelo nigmar melachto. So it's a Kabbalah. We have a divrei Kabbalah. It's always going to be kovea. Next, Amar Mar Zutra. He's going to bring a proof from his father to his father from the Mishnah. Amar Mar Zutra brother of Nachman. Zutra says the name right, the son of Nachman. We also learned in the Mishnah. The other Rabbi Eliezer also said, a person could stand by the muktzeh by his backyard on Erev Shabbat on Shvi'it. Right? Tama, the reasoning why it's going to be permitted is because it's Shvi'it. It means you're allowed to eat the perot on Shabbat. Right? Why? Because it's on Shnata Shemitah. Because there's no maaser on Shnata Shemitah. Because since anything it's not really yours, so you don't have to give the maaser to them. But if it's any other types of the years, right? Obviously it's going to be asur. My time, what's the reason why it's going to be asur? Is it not because Shabbat is going to be kovea, which means whether it's gamar melachto or not gamar melachto? And so the Gemara, no. Shanehatam, it's different over there. Since he says that from here I'm going to eat tomorrow, he made it kavua. Meaning the fact that he came and he said, I'm eating from here, that's just making it kavua. And ever since it's making it kavua, we already said halacha, it was making it kavua. So says the Gemara, Yachiv, so Ma'idiyah Shabbat. So then why do we mention Shabbat? Afilu b'chol nami, even in the chol it's going to be the same thing. What do I care about that you came on Erev Shabbat and now you want to eat it on Shabbat? If I come during the week and I say I'm going to eat from here, I made it kavua, gamanu, and I have to take off the maaser. So why do we speak about Davka Shabbat? Hakamash comes to teach you the tevel muchanu etzel Shabbat. The tevel is considered muchan by Shabbat. She'im avar v'tikno metukan, because if you were over and you transgress and you did the tikkun, it's considered metukan, which means it is. I would have had a havamina that tevel is untithed produce, which means that it's products that I didn't take off maaser. I would have thought to say that that's muktzeh. Why? I can't eat it. So if I can't eat it, the muktzeh, come on, I can't do anything with it. Kamash Banan comes to teach you, that on Shabbat it's considered muchan, it's considered ready. Why is it considered ready? Because if a person transgressed and they did take off maaser on Shabbat, even though you're not allowed to take off maaser, but if you did take off maaser, it's metukan, it's fixed. You took off maaser. So because of that, it's considered muchan, and it's not considered muktzeh. Okay?
And not before.
But you're not allowed to, but if you already did it, it's going to be okay.
As forgiven,
Oh, it's not forgiven. It counts the maaser. It's not forgiven. You did an avirah, but you did an avirah for sure. She did an avirah, but it counts that you took it off. And then the Gemara is going to continue.
He preset it.
Even though he preset it, but if you did take off the maaser, it's going to be a maaser. We continue with Hashem tomorrow.